So let's look at some solutions to water consumption or shortages or droughts. At the end of the day, using water sustainably is the key. Always think of prevention is the most important. I'm going to highlight that or underline it because prevention is the key. We don't want to deal with a problem, we want to avoid it. In your book, there's some inserts, and they're very, very good inserts. For this one, it's about how to use water sustainably. Obviously, if you use water less or pay attention to your water use, that's a good effect. Subsidizing, they're going to see that word a lot. And a good example of that is if the water company offers you some kind of kickback or reduced rate if you use a specific amount of water a month, that would be considered a subsidy. Don't deplete the aquifers, although that sounds very vague and hard to do. By monitoring the water table levels, you can avoid this problem. Preserving quality. If you maintain water's quality, then you're not degrading it, so you're not reducing its availability. So again, you should read these and try to at least pick 3. This is a critically important thing. This is one of the things scientists believe is going to be in our future, raising of water prices. Water is one of the utilities that has always been the least in the home. It used to be paid once every 3 months and for a minimal amount. And if I could tell you in the past 10 years, water rates have tripled. And this is the way they're avoiding the critical water shortage problem. Another way, obviously, if agricultural is the leading use of water in the United States, improving irrigation systems will lead to reduced wastewater or reduced water consumption, period. These are 3 examples of advanced technology irrigation system: gravity flow, drip irrigation, and center pivot. And if you look at the pictures and the brief description in the book, you'll be able to see. Let's say, for example, this center pivot, it basically has a system where the crops are in a certain radius and the sprinkler system travels around. And here's a zoomed in picture, so it's kind of directly hitting the crops instead of being shot out into the air where it can evaporate before it hits the ground. Make sure to look at these 2 and get a better feel of what each is. Solutions to irrigation water waste. Continue. They have this topic called canopy over crops, and basically it's producing a canopy over the crops so that the water that evaporates will trickle back down. So it's kind of like its own water cycle taking place. Here's that chart a little bigger. Remember to look at these in your book. So as strange as that sounds, waterless toilets, it's actually becoming a little bit popular. It's more like, if you think of Disney World, the way the toilets are powered by air or suction or even an airplane, it's going to save money and water. And the waste can actually be used as fertilizer, so it becomes like kind of like a sludge. It would require a full installation. Rainwater harvesting, another interesting thing. The technology is not something you need to know, but just the idea of harvesting your rain and then filtering and using it, or using it for irrigation systems would work as well. Avoiding leaks is critical. So any leaks you have in your house, you want to avoid so that you don't reduce wastewater loss. Like if your toilet is leaking water, you're wasting water unnecessarily. Reuse water. This is a picture, and again, you don't have to know the technology behind it. The fact that you have a sink that has its own filtration system and regenerates the water for you, so you're reusing your own tap water. And the same with the toilet. Once you flush the toilet, it refilters the water and you use the same water in the gallon. And again, back to the same thing I told you before, increasing prices will lead to if you have increase in price, people are going to be a little bit more conservative. So it's forced conservation. And subsidies is the other extreme, or I would say the more pretty extreme, where if you choose the right decision, so use less water, you get kickbacks or benefits from it. So building dams helps preserve water for many reasons. It stops flooding, so flooding obviously leads to water loss. And when you build a dam, you're going to need a large body of water with a reservoir, and it basically regenerates the water in itself. The water is also used to generate electricity and for recreational purposes, so it has multiple use in one area. It supplies irrigation to the surrounding areas. It could be used as a water plant in the future. A lot of dams have been building water plants next to it and using the water. It helps control river flows, and as I mentioned before, it helps control floods. Another big topic is it increases reliable runoff. Remember, reliable runoff is runoff we could count on that takes place on the surface. And since it trickles right into this body of water, because water attracts each other, it increases the chance of surface runoff or reliable runoff. So transferring water is a way to deal with water shortages, which is also a problem. And they're focusing, in this picture, you're seeing people transferring water from one local town to another. But it also is done through, obviously, underground pipes. That's how you receive your water. Tunnels or aqueducts. Converting salt water to fresh water, there's 3 different processes that are used to do this. You don't have to know the full scientific process, but you do have to know the name behind it. Desalinization is basically removing salts, which all these processes are. Reverse osmosis and distillation. If you look at a bottle of Dasani water, and if you notice the taste is a little bit different, they actually use this process called reverse osmosis in order to create their water. So it's not what you typically drink, which is like a spring water or any kind of water purification system that you're used to. Another way to purify is with the use of sunlight. It basically helps reduce the chance of bacteria. If you apply sunlight or UV rays to organisms like E. coli, salmonella for 6 hours, they will be affected by that UV radiation. There's a picture of water bottles on your roof, and you're using the aluminum to attract the UV rays, and they will filter the water for you or remove impurities. Again, look at this to help you out with some possible essay questions. But the key is always prevention or control versus dealing with the problem afterwards. So it's, again, the same topics are listed. Waste less water, offer subsidies. I mean, if you're going to reduce groundwater pollution, you're going to reduce surface water depletion, it's all going to be the same thing. Solutions to pollution, well, again, prevention is the key. I'm going to keep mentioning that. But all these acts, for this test, I want you to be familiar with the fact that these acts came into play in the 1970s, and the acts associated with water pollution, they also dealt with making water potable, which that didn't really take place until 74. Water Quality Act reinforced that, and I want you to know that the 70s is the key to environmental control or regimens. And here's a website where you can go to help you learn these acts, but we're going to cover them in the future. Surface water pollution reduction, or reducing non-point. If you reduce erosion is basically uprooting the soil. Soil holds water in, and if you uproot the soil, then you're going to lead to runoff of nutrients like plant nutrients or any nutrients that the land holds. In order to help reduce erosion, you're going to keep land covered in vegetation, especially vegetation that is water absorbing, and use organic techniques, which we're going to talk about during the land chapter, or organic farming techniques, organic fertilizers, and organic pesticides. Solutions to pollution. Again, prevention over cleanup, key. You rather deal with figuring out how to come up with toxic substitutes or subsidies for using less harmful substances, install monitoring wells or underground tanks to store toxic chemicals, and we're going to talk about that in the land chapter. Require leak detectors. Again, we're going to talk about that later on in the land chapter. And ban hazardous waste disposal and landfills and injection wells, which again, we're going to talk about disposal of waste. That's one of our last units. Solutions to cultural eutrophication. Obviously, you're going to ban excessive use of phosphates and nitrogen, or make sure not to remove plants or control excessive weed growth, because that way you avoid runoff of excess nutrients. To control pollution of plants or electric power plants, which is thermal pollution or heat introduction into a body of water, control discharge, or have power plants use their own water or replenish their own water. Preventing floods, again, there's a whole unit, but the number one way to prevent floods right now is to restore wetlands, because they absorb, the wetland plants absorb water. And building dams, as we mentioned before, is going to be the second best method. Finally, sewage treatment. We got wastewater and we have to deal with it, and believe it or not, it can actually go a step further and become your water in your home. But the way it's treated, the first treatment is called primary treatment, and it's physical filtration, which is basically removing debris. And if you see here, it's like a filtering system. And then the secondary treatment is where they remove pathogens, or that's called the biological treatment. And then the third level is going to include anything beyond this point that doesn't involve gases or, the chlorine for the disinfection. At the end, it's all going to result in sludge. And as I mentioned previously, sludge can be used as fertilizers or bricks, to make bricks in construction.